Who are these newcomers to the night? And more importantly, what are they capable of? That's right, we're going to be doing a speculation video on the new Uni 2 characters. I've been wanting to make a video like this for a while, but honestly it just wasn't really the time. But now that we have quite a bit of information on one, and crumbs of info on the others, I think now is about a good time to make a speculation video. First off is the Moonlight Dancer, the twin barrel beauty, the premier marketing material, Kaguya. She's here to breast boobily all over the battlefield. Seriously, this character is ridiculous. Okay, but for real though, we actually have a lot to talk about with Kaguya. First, she's a member of the Lichtpreis, which is basically the Catholic Church if it was an all-female organization that hunted monsters. It's a very important faction who consists of characters such as Mika, Orie, and Wagner. Speaking of Mika and Orie specifically, Kaguya actually has a very good relationship with those two. She's considered best friends with Orie in particular. Even before she was revealed, we've heard plenty about her teasing nature and how she likes to play pranks on Mika. But now she's been assigned to Japan to hunt the Aeon, aka Kuon. Nobody really knows what she's going to do to the main villain of the series, including herself. I mean, seriously, what's she gonna do against him? She thinks this entire thing is ridiculous, but will try her best regardless. She has a mission, after all, and luckily, she has the best company she could ask for right by her side. Okay, actually, I was lying before. We actually have a very clear idea on what she's going to do to Kuon. Or, not Kuon specifically, but a lot of her gameplay has been shown off to the public already, so we actually have a very good idea on how she's going to function. She's equipped with the Garibalds, which allows her to shoot her opponents with muzzle flashes, lasers, and even bouncing mines. But something that's probably more important than that is her general mobility. She's kick-flipping all over the battlefield, she has air dashes she can double jump out of. Most characters don't even have double jumps in this game. All of this should allow her to approach situations with a degree of flexibility that most characters can't even dream of, except for Seth. Seth can definitely do that type of stuff already. In fact, he's still better at it. All in all, it's pretty clear this character was designed for newcomers. Most newcomers to fighting games like mobility, especially in anime fighters. But at the same time, she's still well-rounded enough that she's not really lacking in any major tools. With the exception of maybe a meterless DP, but that's really not a huge thing to lack. Anyway, here's Tsurugi. He's the second in command of the Exist Force Guardians, which is a secret high school club comprised of superpowered humans called Inverts who are now playing hero. The only other playable character with a link to the EFG is Phonon, who is a former member who quit because of their strict stance on not using powers unless it was strictly, completely, absolutely necessary. Which is way too responsible of a decision for a group of high school students to be making. I mean, sure, saying the decision itself is easy enough, but actually committing to it? No fucking way you'll catch high schoolers doing that shit. Tsurugi uses the Bulwark, and while we only see snippets of him in the Uni 2 official trailer, what we do see is actually very interesting. First, a Rising Uppercut special. I'd personally be really surprised if there wasn't an invincible meterless variant, considering the defensive nature of the weapon that he's using. Second, we see him use some move that lifts him off the ground while comboing the opponent to the point where he can actually convert into his aerial normals. And we know these are aerial normals because we actually see them outside of this context with this screenshot that the Amazon release page shows of the game. The next interesting thing he does is this move right here, which appears to be some sort of stance into a shield slide follow-up. This has instantly brought back memories of Kagura from BlazBlue. For the unaware, Kagura is a BlazBlue character whose entire gimmick is that he'll press his special drive button, which puts him into a stance, and then depending on what button he presses, he'll do a different follow-up for each of these stances. He even has a slide follow-up like Tsurugi. Now, we don't know for sure if this is the gimmick. It's entirely possible that this slide is the only follow-up that it has. The stance itself does have a distinct visual effect, which might imply some sort of defensive utility that Kagura's stances don't have. And then the follow-up is meant to be a natural punish against enemies that don't respect the defensive utility correctly. Oh, also he's got a combo grab, maybe hit grab EX special here. Not a lot to mention about that other than command grabs are obviously a very useful thing for a character to have. But honestly, while there isn't a lot to discuss here, this one move and its follow-up already leaves the room for so many possibilities. The visual effect on Tsurugi's stance, to me, implies some sort of defensive utility, but what could that be? Does it only affect projectiles? Only strikes? And if enemies do hit it, does that affect the follow-up at all? Does it have some sort of resource? Can it only affect certain types of strikes? Can it get grabbed? What do we have here? There's not really much that we can glean out of it here, but there's so many possibilities that you honestly can't help but talk about it for a little bit, right? And none of that is even discussing if the slide move that he has is the only follow-up from that stance. Anyway, I think I've asked enough questions about him for now. It's not like I can provide any satisfying answers. I mean, right now all we have is speculation until the next gameplay trailer drops. On that note, I might end up making videos dedicated to introducing and discussing each new character when their full gameplay trailers end up dropping. Very similar to what I'm doing here, but a lot more slower and methodical. Please drop a comment down below if you'd like to see that sort of content from me. Oh, and be sure to subscribe too. Thank you. And finally, we have the last character, Kuon. Just fucking look at this guy. He has been built up since day one. He's Lene's brother and a rebirth. Remember how I said inbirths are the superpowered humans of this series? A rebirth is a step beyond that. There are only 6 of them in the entire world. The only other character that we know of who's a rebirth is Adelheid, the leader of the Lichtpreis. That's right, the fucking anime Pope is the only other character that is on rebirth status in this story that we know of. Rebirths are said to be strong enough to cause natural disasters and are made out of the same stuff that voids are made out of. Voids, which are the natural monsters that just appear during the Hollow Knight, are actually completely immortal. The only thing that can kill voids, and by extension rebirths, is the legendary Insulator Sword, a sword so powerful that anyone who has it literally just gets protagonist status immediately. Kuon, long ago, was a noble swordsman who actually wielded the Insulator himself. He even saved Waldstein's life, inspiring him to become a fighter himself. But at some point, he changed and ended up becoming incredibly selfish. Presumably because human minds aren't meant to last for eternity without some sort of support. Regardless of the reasoning, now he's just the shell of his former self, and the void that his body is made out of is becoming harder and harder to control. It covers more than half of his body now. Kuon's gameplay is going to be a lot more difficult to determine. There's not nearly as much interesting stuff to analyze here, which means I'm going to have to be even more minute because this is the big character. This is the final boss. It's the character I'm most interested in playing personally. So we're going to get really minute here. Going frame by frame, we see an aerial move, a crouching normal, an anti-air normal, and a teleporting special. But what's interesting is that this teleport appears to immediately go into an attack, meaning it's likely not possible to get just the teleport. It does mean it's a lot faster though. After that, we see a pillar special canceled into some EX move. Or maybe his cinematic infinite worth super, who knows. In the second clip, we see him using a multi-hitting normal into some sort of multi-hitting ring special, which allows him to link into another normal. Probably some command normal like 6C, 4C or something. Carmine actually is a very similar tool, but I doubt this one will fulfill the same Okizeme utility. In the third clip, we see him use another teleport move that doesn't actually send him across the screen immediately, but rather closer to the ground, which causes him to slide into Lene, allowing him to cancel into an EX version of the pillar special I mentioned before. That's about it, actually. We have a pillar special, a ring special, a teleport that's kind of more of a baiting tool than a mix-up tool, and yeah, that's basically it. We have some cool multi-hitting normals, though. I gotta love that, I'm not gonna lie. Actually, on the topic of his normals, his are really big. I mean, that's actually quite common in Under Night, but in particular, Kuon's normals are really tall for the most part. I could see basically every single one of these working as some sort of niche anti-air tool. But yeah, there's not really a lot to discuss though. But if anything, that just makes him even more interesting. I feel like we're like one good step away from properly understanding Tsurugi's game plan, whereas Kuon hasn't even dared to show his hand. Which makes sense, he is the series' main villain after all. He manipulated Hilda, is the brother of Lene, one of the most important characters in the original story, and even mirrors our protagonist by wielding mock insulators, the same sword that's now in Hyde's hands. His presence is literally felt throughout the entire story in some way or another. There's so much hype surrounding these characters. I'd love to know what you all think of him in the comments down below. Who are you the most interested in? Are you a Uni fan, or is this the first time you're checking it out? If you're new, please tell me what character you're interested in, even if it's none of the newcomers here. I just love hearing about people getting into the game for the first time. Speaking of which, the game's on sale for a measly $6 US until the 26th. So if you want to make a low commitment buy now, I would highly recommend playing and trying out the game right now. Some of the system mechanics are different, but it's nearly entirely the same game. To the point where there's even people saying that all of the combo routes of the current game are gonna work in the new one. So none of your time would be wasted by playing the game now. All it would cost you now is $6. If you wait for the new game to come out, I mean, that's a huge risk. You're either gonna get that or Tekken. And I don't want you to be in a situation where you feel like you have to make the safe choice that everyone else is going to be playing, or make a choice that you might potentially really enjoy, but you're scared that there won't be enough of a player base for the game to be supported. Buy the game right now, because I guarantee you none of your time will be wasted, because you really don't want to be in the situation where you refund the game in January and then you're like a week behind everyone who's playing Tekken, and then you're like, oh fuck, I'm behind the wave, what am I gonna do? It's a really sucky situation to be in. Whereas right now, you can try the game for very cheap and you can have a definitive answer on whether or not you would play it or not. But with all that shilling being said, until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day, and please remember to show at least some sympathy towards even your worst of enemies. Thank you so much for watching.